Hey guys, welcome back to another lesson. Today I'm going to show you how to play the minor 2-5-1 progression and I'll show you a few tricks that are related to it. So as always, almost always, let me start by playing a short piece and then we'll go back and break it down and I'll show you all of the little tricks I used while playing it. Okay, so let me start by pointing out that unlike the major 2-5-1 progression, there's actually more than one minor 2-5-1 progression. So let's work in the key of C, or C minor, or major, just C. And let's first of all look at C major. When you say the major 2-5-1 progression, or just the 2-5-1, where major is implied, you're talking about playing a D minor to a G major, to a C major, or D minor 7 to a G dominant 7 to a C major 7. Now, there's more than one minor scale, so consequently there's more than one minor 2-5-1 progression. And the one that's most commonly used in jazz is actually built on the harmonic minor. So it sounds kind of oriental, but the jazz doesn't sound oriental at all. But if you go ahead and build a 2-5-1 progression on this scale, what you get is a D half diminished. So you can think of this also as a D minor 7 with a flattened 5. This is the 5 and here it's flattened. Going to a G dominant 7, going to a C minor major 7. So if I were to play a C minor 7, it would be this, but this 7 here is actually raised. I mean, well, it's not raised in the key of C harmonic minor, but the point is that you're signifying that this last note here is a B. So the distance from the previous note, which is a G, is 4 semitones. Now you could have built other minor 2-5-1 progressions. For example, you could play a D minor 7 to a G dominant 7 to a C minor 7, which is perfectly acceptable, but less commonly used in jazz. Now let's talk a little bit about voicing this minor 2-5-1 progression. The kind of easiest thing to start with is to do a drop 2 voicing. So you can take, so there are different variations of this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two notes here and drop them down an octave. So the F and the C, play them here. And similarly, I'm going to take these two notes here, this F and B, and drop them down an octave. And take these two notes here and drop them down an octave. And what I get is kind of it's called a drop 2 voicing. Now sometimes what people will play is they're going to mix up these progressions, so they're going to play a D half diminished to a G dominant 7 to a C minor 7, so not a C minor major 7, which again is perfectly fine. It sounds pretty fine to me, and you can play it if you'd like, and I actually do it in several points in this piece. Now, I personally find that using higher tensions gives nicer voicings for this minor 2-5-1 progression, but you can definitely get pretty far by using these drop 2 voicings. And you can do inversions of them. So for example, you could do this for the D minor 7 flat 5. This is for the G dominant 7. And finally, for the C minor major 7. You could go pretty far with just doing these fourth voicings. Now for the D minor 7 flat 5, I usually like to add the 11th degree. So I usually throw in this G here, and sometimes I actually even omit the third, which is kind of taboo in a lot of jazz. But personally, I just find this sounds pretty nice to my ears. So I'm just playing this. I'm omitting the third, which is the F, and adding this 11th degree, which is a G. I kind of like this. I like the ambiguity. Now for the G chord, or the G dominant 7, what I like to play is this variation where I have a G dominant 7, but I also add a sharp 5 and a sharp 9. So this D minor 7 flat 5, G dominant 7, and a C minor major 7 or C minor major 9. You can invert this, by the way. You can use just this form, and you can play it in versions of it. So I can take this B flat here and move it down an octave, and I can take this F and move it down an octave, and I have another nice voicing, which I can again use when I need to play the 5th degree. So when I, in this case, need to play the G dominant 7. This would also be good for left hand voicing, so you could use these for the left hand and finally resolving down to the C minor major 9. 2, 5, 1. Okay, now a few of the tricks that I used in this particular piece when I played it were, for example, there was a modulation between the minor and the relative major key. So I was playing this in C, and at some point I modulated to the major key, which is 3 semitones above it, which would be an E flat major. So I played and now I played the modulation, which went like this. So what I'm doing here, first of all, is I'm basically using a 2-5-1 in the key of E flat major to modulate to the key of E flat major. So I'm playing an F minor, which is a 2, in the key of E flat major, to this chord here, which is a tritone substitution for the 5. Now the 5, if I were to play 2-5-1 in the key of E flat major, I would play an F minor to a B flat major to an E flat. So instead of this B flat major, I played its tritone substitution, which is an E, and ended up in an E flat major. So 2, tritone substitution, 1. Now this tritone substitution is an E, and it's an E with certain tensions. So for example, you can think of this in one of two ways, this tritone substitution. You can either think of this as sort of an E dominant 7, but with a flat 5 and a flat 9. Or you can think of this, I could have actually played this as well, which then would make it an E and a B flat, which is a polychord. So either one of these two ways is sufficient. I actually preceded the F minor with this chromatic motion. This will be a kind of an F sharp augmented chord. So I'm going from F sharp to F minor. And now I modulate back to the C minor just by doing a 2-5-1 in the key of C minor. Now at some point I use this kind of ascending, descending whole tone motion. So I did this. This is kind of like a nice trick. You have this shape moving up in whole tones. These are augmented chords. While in the left hand, I'm moving down in octaves, F, E flat, D, and C. So this opposing motion creates kind of a nice effect. And then I keep on going. Another sort of trick I used here, or not really a trick, but I personally find it to be kind of a nice voicing for the one minor, the C minor chord. Has a kind of a nice open sound. So I'm playing a C, E flat, A in the left hand, and a D, G, and B in the right hand. I actually end on this chord. So if you're not familiar with it, it's kind of worth adding to your repertoire. Another big thing that minor songs really lend themselves to is this motion within chords. So it almost, when you play, you almost instinctively want to kind of climb down with the bass. Well, usually it goes down only like maybe a few semitones. And while you do this, you can do this. You should usually, when you do these contrapuntal voicings, look for opposing motion. So maybe do something like this. So you see I'm starting with something like this, and then my bass descends. So I went over a few of the tricks and ideas I incorporated into playing this piece, and I hope you could have at least, I mean, you have at least picked up one or two of them and that you liked, and you can now incorporate it into your own playing. Of course, you need to practice, which is a given, but there were a few ideas in here that I think are worth at least thinking about. That's it for now. I hope you've learned something interesting, and I'll see you next time.